Hello guys. So today we are looking at, should you use a quadratic formula to factorize or to solve quadratic equations, or you should use the normal bracket method that you use to um, factorize quadratics or solve quadratic equations. So without any waste of time, this is a quadratic formula. Now, a tip that I always give my students is this, is that when you want to decide whether to use a quadratic formula or not, you look at a quadratic equation and you're like, can I factorize it in a normal way, or I should use a quadratic formula? Remember, a quadratic formula always works, right? So quadratic formula always works, all right? Quadratic formula always works. It's a fact. So you don't have to ask yourself that question. But if your maths is that strong, sometimes you don't want to be doing the lengthy process of substituting into the quadratic formula. So what you do, take this part here, the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and see if it is a perfect square. Okay, and see if it is a perfect square. If it's a perfect square, then factorize like normal. Okay, so let's see. We're going to try some examples. Now let's take, for example, let's take number, oh, I don't like this color, let me try this. Okay, nah, blue is not nice. Let me take white. So let's say, for example, we have x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. I can see I cannot factorize this using that brackets method, right? So let me prove why I cannot do that. Remember, I said to use that bracket method, that part of square root of b squared minus 4ac must be a perfect square. So you know a is 1, b is 4, c is 1, right? So let's see. B squared minus 4ac is 4 squared minus 4 into 1 into 1. So this is 16 minus 4, which is square root of 12. This is not a perfect square, right? This is not a perfect square. So to solve this, you will have to use a quadratic formula. Okay, you will have to use a quadratic formula. Number 2, you have x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. Of course, I can see that I will be able to factorize it using that method that I know. Okay, so let's see now. Let's prove. B squared minus 4ac. What is b? B is 3. What is a? A is 1. What is c? C is negative 4. So let's see. 3 squared, which is 9. 9 minus 4 times 1 times negative 4. This is 9 plus 16. This will return 25, which is 5. As you can see, this is a perfect square, right? 25 is a perfect square. And as you can see, I'm able to find the square root of 25. So I can solve this using this method where I can say it's x minus 4, x minus 1 equals 0. But because the bigger factor is positive, this one must be. So it's easier to solve this one. Can you guys see that? It's easier to solve this one, right? Okay, so this is what you do. Whenever you look at your quadratics, you might ask yourself this question: if you cannot find the square root of your answer, or the square root of your answer is, or your square root is not a whole number, don't try to factorize using this method. Use a quadratic formula. Let me show you one last example. So we're going to look at 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 equals 0. So with this one, we're going to say, okay, you are, A is, oh sorry, I should have started with 4AC. Now what is B? B is 5. What is A? A is 3. What is C? C is negative 2. So what do we have here? We have 5 squared, which is 25, and we have 4 times 3 times 2, which is 24. So 25 plus 24 is 49. So this is a perfect square. Therefore, 49 is a perfect square. And I can find the square root of 49, which is 7. So what does it tell you? It tells you that I can solve this in a normal way, which is x. Maybe I should change colors. In a normal way, where I should say this is 3x minus, I'll come back, x minus, I'll come back. So maybe I should say minus 1, minus 2, but the bigger factor must be positive. So this must be positive. So x equals half, or x equals negative 2. You see, it's easier, right? It's easier to solve this as compared to the first one. It wasn't easy, right? So let's fix this. If this part here under the square root is not a perfect square, use the quadratic formula. Okay? If this part under the square root is not a perfect square, use the quadratic formula. However, you can use the quadratic formula at all times. It will always return a value. Okay? As long as your roots are real. I'm talking about high school. As long as your roots are real, it will always return an answer. Okay? Your quadratic formula will always work. However, when you are like me, where you feel like quadratic formula is time wasting, then do what we just did here. Okay? Alright guys, bye bye.